I mentioned yesterday that Mitch McConnell, that evil fuck who runs the Senate, he has more power than Trump. You do know that. He knows that. But Mitch McConnell, continuing his Christian leadership role of not allowing anything that Obama did to pass into law, not allowing Obama's selection of Merrick Garland to go on the Supreme Court. That fucking McConnell held that seat open until Trump. So McConnell's record of being, calling him an obstructionist is bullshit. He's a destroyer. He refers to himself as the Grim Reaper. You dirty fucker. I wait for the day when the Grim Reaper does pay you a visit. Huh? Anyway, his record, McConnell's record when Obama was president, is fully available for anyone who wants to see it. But he's made it clear that nothing that passes in the House is even going to get a hearing in the Senate as long as he is the Senate Majority Leader. Nothing. Which means if he is reelected, McConnell, for another 6-year term, that's it as far as any kind of progressive legislation. Well, here's an example. Democrats today in the House approved sweeping anti-discrimination legislation that would extend civil rights protections to LGBT people by prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Oh, no, you don't. Not the fucking queers. This is how the Christians think. This is how McConnell thinks. This is how every fucking Republican in the House and the Senate thinks. The queers? Why, if they're protected, that's religious discrimination, because we Christians, and a few of us Jews and a few of us Muslims, but this is a Christian country, we Christians need to beat up on queers. It says so in the fucking Bible. Where? Fuck you, don't ask me questions like that. Jesus hated queers. Where did he say that? How do you know that 5 or 6 of those 12 disciples weren't gay, buggering each other at night when, stay out of the sandstorms. Let's huddle under our robes, right? The protections based on sexual orientation and or gender identity that was passed by the House would extend to employment, housing, loan applications, education, public accommodations, and other areas. Like most civil rights acts that have been passed in the past 60 years, 50 years. Why do we have to pass civil rights acts for groups that have been made targets by the Christians? The white Christians. Why do we have to do that? Well, because they've been made targets by the white Christians. Going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson's famous bullshit line, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, white men, landowners, fuck the women, fuck the blacks, all white men, landowners are created equal. Only that's not how he worded it, is it? So the white male Christian conservatives in this country have been targeting various groups since before Jefferson. That's why these laws are needed to be passed. Called the Equality Act, the bill is and was a top priority for Nancy Pelosi, who said it will bring the nation, quote, closer to equal liberty and justice for all, end quote. Which it would, but it's going to die. Nancy, you know this as well as I do. It won't even get a fucking hearing in the Senate. And even if it were to get a hearing, and even if it were to be passed as a law ready for the orange asshole signature, you know that hypocritical fuck Donald Trump would never sign it. So yes, Nancy, yes, yes. It would bring us closer to equal liberty and justice for all. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And if we stopped using carbon-based fuel this afternoon, well, Saturday afternoon, then it would also bring us closer to being able to survive as a species on our home planet. Neither of which is going to happen, Nancy. Pelosi added that sexual orientation and gender identity, quote, deserve full civil rights protections in the workplace and in every place, education, housing, credit, jury service, public accommodations, end quote. The legislation's chief sponsor was David Cicilline, a Democrat of Rhode Island, who I believe is gay. He said it affirms fairness and equality as core American values. Excuse me. Fairness and equality as core American values since fucking when? When did that happen? Hello, Kathy, when did that happen? Anybody? When did fairness and equality become core American values? Are you fucking crazy? That's the lip shits that has been spread among hoi polloi like us. But it has no basis in fact or even truth. This country was not built on fairness and equality. It's never existed here, and it never will. Excuse me. The legislation's chief sponsor, Representative David Cicilline, Democrat of Rhode Island, said it affirms fairness and equality as core American values and, quote, ensures members of the LGBTQ community can live their lives free from the fear of legal discrimination of any kind. And then Cicilline, am I saying his name right? I think I am. And then he said this. Now, yes, he's gay. He called equal treatment under the law a founding principle of the United States. But that's not true. It's in the document, in the Constitution of the United States. It's in the Russian Constitution, too. The Soviet. I don't know what the Russian is, but the Soviet Constitution, same thing. Wasn't that funny? They had, yeah. Equal treatment under the law is not a founding principle of the United States. I mean, anybody who makes it to third grade American history will, it starts to dawn on them. What? Mommy, Daddy, is this stuff true? Cicilline said, quote, it's absurd that in 2019, members of the lesbian gay community can be fired from their jobs, denied service in a restaurant, or get thrown out of their apartment because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. It's absurd? Really not so much. David, may I call you David? Really not so much because at least they're not now, gay folk are not dragged to the town square and set on fire. At least lesbian and gay people now are not assumed to be possessed of demons or Satan. So gay folk have come a long way. When you say it's absurd that in 2019, members of the gay community can be fired from their jobs, well, that's a fucking improvement over what it used to be when our founding documents, David, that you call contain fairness and equality as core American values were put together. You know this stuff, don't you, David? Sure you do. Now, Republicans, of course, oppose this bill. Most Republicans, except Susan Collins. Susan Collins thinks it's a good bill, and maybe she will vote for it or change her mind at the last minute, maybe. I don't know. Most Republicans oppose the bill and call it another example of government overreach. Liberty and justice for all. What the fuck is that? See, do you understand the madness? I go through this every fucking day with you. Do you understand this? Several Republican lawmakers spoke against it today on the House floor, and Trump is expected to veto the legislation if it reaches his desk. Most Republicans call it another example of government overreach, protecting the legal rights of American citizens is government overreach. At a news conference yesterday, the Republicans said the bill would jeopardize religious freedom. By requiring acceptance of a particular ideology about sexuality and sexual identity. No, it doesn't, you right-wing fascist fucking Christian Republicans. No, it doesn't. It doesn't require you to accept anything. What it requires you to do is shut your fucking mouth. If somebody happens to be gay, it's none of your business. And guess what, you rotten little fuckers? It's none of your business what a woman does with her womb either. Representative Vicky Hartzler, Republican of Missouri, called the legislation, quote, grossly misnamed. It's anything but equalizing. Huh? Okay, so my brother's queer, but we don't invite him to Thanksgiving dinner. I'm a Christian. Vicky wasn't finished. She said, the bill hijacks the 1964 Civil Rights Act to create a brave new world. Ooh. She read that in high school. A brave new world of discrimination based on undefined terms of sexual orientation and gender identity, she said. Undefined terms? The legislation, she said, threatens women's sports, women's shelters, schools. It could silence female athletes, domestic abuse survivors, and other women. As if this goddamn Vicky Hartzler, Nazi fucking female, self-mutilating woman gives a shit about the groups she just named. Okay, it's at that point where I've got to take a little break and see if I can get the blood pressure down and the oxygen content up. Breathe. I'll be right back. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.